more respect than I
I
do.
don't often sit right next to you, though, this way.
All right, we rolling?
Yeah.
Tell me when.
Start.
Okay, we're rolling it.
Hi, Scott Orland with Cinema Magazine. It is my pleasure to introduce you to a man I don't think you need an introduction to, Steven Spielberg, probably one of the most creative and prolific directors we've ever had here in Hollywood.
Hello.
Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. Everybody has this impression of who he is and what he was about, and yet this movie is not really just about him. It's about the things that he did. I mean, the whole essence of the 13th Amendment. Can you talk a little bit about that angle of the story?
Well, the story was very simple. Did I want to tell a story about a presumption that many people make that Abraham Lincoln was too great to be mortal? And except for the fact that he was assassinated, a lot of stories by Abraham Lincoln are about stories where we worship the iconography of Lincoln. Mount Rushmore, the Lincoln Memorial, statues, on the penny, on the $5 bill. And what Tony Kushner and I and Daniel Day-Lewis decided very early on was we wanted to tell the human side of this man. We wanted to see him as a great politician, a great forward-thinking president, a man who would get lost in very, very deep thought while he out loud tries to figure through these issues. And the fact that he knew that he needed to abolish slavery before the war ended. Because should the war end before a resolution to abolish slavery, an amendment was passed, it would not be abolished for decades. And this would just be a pause between the first Civil War and possibly a second war. And so that's what our film focuses on, is President Lincoln as a working president, not as a president posing for a photograph or posing for a painting.
But what's fascinating too, Stephen, is you see a man here because he had an ego, that he had vulnerability, he had flaws. I mean, sometimes that we I don't know how many times Hollywood has made a movie about Abraham Lincoln dating back to probably the 1920s, and he's always been a little bit up on a pedestal. You kind of show him, and especially through the performance of Daniel Day-Lewis,
Yes.
that he's a little edgier than we perceive him.
Edgier, vulnerable, certainly flawed, certainly with a family that was on the edge of themselves. Tad had lost his brother Willie, to typhus 2 years before our story takes place. Mary had suffered that loss and had been grieving right up to the end of her life. And so Lincoln was balancing the life of this country, the actual, what would this country ever exist as it once existed, with the balance of his life as a parent, as a dad, and as a husband.
And when I watch this movie, and I'm sure this wasn't your intention,
Right.
but one of the great things is as an audience, it reverberates on many different levels, is yes, it's about the 13th Amendment, about the freeing of slaves, but in their discussion they talked about, well, next thing women will want the right to vote. And
Yes.
today we have countries around the world where women don't have rights,
Right.
where it's about same-sex rights they're trying to do, that this reverberates on so many different levels. Is that, for a filmmaker, is that good discussion to have?
Yeah, I think any discussion about basically the rights of people, just human rights, civil rights, the rights of people to just exist. I mean, I've explored this before in other stories, but this all came together because all of these rights were part of the Reconstruction period after the Civil War. The period of racism through the Jim Crow period. The fact that it took almost 130 of the 150 years since the end of the Civil War, really, for Lincoln's dream of complete Reconstruction to occur, not just in the South, but in this country alone, that basically has been proven by the fact that we elected our first African-American president in 2008.
Now, you've been working on many, many movies over the course of your 40 years in Hollywood. Is this the first time that you dealt with an actor who was so immersed in his role that he lost Daniel Day-Lewis and he was only Abraham Lincoln on set?
No, I've worked with actors who have different ways of reaching, a desired, a character, and Daniel just has a process which is brilliant. I never questioned the process. I never said, how did you do it? I was just grateful that he did. I was grateful that every single day I had Abraham Lincoln in my life for 12 hours. And I was very, very sad the last day of shooting when Daniel greeted me in his trailer with a big thank you and a hug and an English accent. I wasn't prepared for that. But I wasn't prepared to lose Lincoln, because this experience has been profound for me, and for all of us that work together on the story. But I've worked with actors who have really gotten into their character. But the great news about Daniel is he's not self-indulgent about it. He doesn't cost you any time. He simply, and because Lincoln has such a deep kindness, a deep compassion, that's what we all live with throughout this experience of making Lincoln with Daniel.
And just a last question for you. Some people think that you might be the president of Hollywood. So if politics ever came into your life, do you think that you would have the qualities to be a good president? Do you think
No.
those leadership skills exist somewhere?
No, I wouldn't have the qualities to be a good president at all.
You're a great director, isn't
I'm working right now. I keep trying to improve on that. I mean, right now I can't see beyond having my eye on a camera, not having a camera on me like this is right now.
Well, I'd vote for you, but although
Oh,
I
you're
think we
great.
have a pretty good person running right now, hopefully
We do,
we'll see what
hopefully,
happens. But as always, Stephen, thank you so much for bringing intelligence, warmth, and compassion through your work. It's just, it's just such
so
a great
nice.
to sit in the
Thank you.
theater.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank
Mrs.
you.
Scott Orland, until next time.
You do that really well.
Awesome.
Wow.